Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here. Thank you for joining me, everyone, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. We're here talking about Mark Bunker and his re-election campaign in Clearwater, Florida. He humiliated David Miscavige and Scientology 4 years ago when he won his campaign for Clearwater City Council. They underestimated him back then. They're not underestimating him this time. And he was running against 4 opponents last time. He's only running against 2 opponents this time. The math is much more difficult this time. But Mark has a very good chance of winning re-election, but we need to make sure he wins his re-election, because if it was a humiliation for Mark Bunker to win 4 years ago, it would be an unbelievable, exponentially larger humiliation for him to win now, after Scientology has already had 4 years to orchestrate his demise. Now, a lot of people think I am Mark Bunker's campaign manager. That is not true. I am just his biggest cheerleader, public cheerleader, and fundraiser. His actual campaign manager is a friend of mine named Scotty the Body Thomas. I'm sorry.
Thanks for having me on, Aaron. And
thanks for joining.
And a hell of a cheerleader you are.
Thank you.
A beautiful cheerleader you are.
Scott managed my campaign for city council 2 years ago. And in fact, how we met is when Scott was running for city council.
Tell that story, Aaron. That's a good story. So I think you should tell them that story.
Okay. Scott was running for city council 4 years ago in the same race that Mark Bunker was running for, but he was running for a different seat.
Opposite race. Oh, opposite
No.
seat.
Yeah, you weren't running for the same seat. And Scott was new to town. Scott, you moved down here from Pottsville, right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Pottsville, PA, and he was new to town. He didn't understand how toxic the Scientologists were, and the Scientologists had started to infiltrate certain political groups locally. So Scott started to get a little chummy with the Scientologists. He and I didn't know each other, but the rumors on the street amongst the Scientologists were Scott was the guy that you wanted to vote for. And so I did a video telling everybody not to vote for Scott Thomas.
It's true.
And then someone who
I lost
to be a
because of that. Because I lost. Aaron did the end.
And then someone who was a mutual friend of ours came up to me at some gathering and was like, I really think you got to meet Scott. I think you, there's been a miscommunication. There's been a misunderstanding. And I'm going to finish this story, but before I forget, everyone, if you're watching right now, we're going to suggest that you go to markbunker2024.com and please donate to his campaign. We're going to talk about that more, what all the money goes towards and everything like that. Okay, so Scott and I met, we started chatting, and then I did a video telling everyone to vote for Scott Thomas. Yeah. And you did lose. You did lose. Was it last place?
Last or second to last. We were pretty down there. I think you did me in. You did me in.
I mean, you'd only lived here for like a couple months. You were just running out of sheer boredom.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've been good buddies ever since then. So Scott is the campaign manager. Scott, tell us, what is Mark Bunker up against in this race?
So, I mean, he's up against the entire establishment, and not just the establishment, but Scientology. So you have the people that are running that have nothing to do with Scientology. They don't want him on there just for the pure fact of they don't want to hear about Scientology. And then you have, the Scientologists are against him. So he really has every angle coming against him. And it's just so important that we get out our message. Mark Bunker is so well liked amongst, the people that matter, the everyday folk, plus the fire, the police. I mean, these guys have endorsed Mark, and not for just no reason. He's really been by their side, so it's important that we get him reelected.
Absolutely. I like to be very transparent when it comes to the finances of things. On Mark's campaign so far, we've raised about 40,000.
Yeah.
We had sort of set our own little target a couple weeks ago of raising 20,000 by the end of the month. We've got a couple thousand more to meet that goal. But we have 6 weeks left until the election. The election is on March 19th. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the finances. When we're talking about a political campaign, a local political campaign, the actual cost of running a campaign is darn close to zero. What does the money raised for these campaigns go towards?
So a lot of it is mailers. As you know, direct mail is the most essential part of a campaign. It's targeting your voters and making sure those people who have not voted at that point get out to vote and targeting them. So what we'll do is as soon as mail-in ballots are sent out, we'll send a direct mail piece out. And then subsequent ones after that, depending on how much money we raise. What I can tell you, Aaron, and I mean, you know this, is just because Mark is in the fundraising lead right now, that does not necessarily mean that he will have the most money. And what I mean by that is in Florida, political action committees are very popular. So there will be what I like to call ghost political action committees, and they'll jump in, not really have any ties to anybody, but set up for a purpose. And what that means is they can send out mailers, and they can't say who to vote for, but they can say who to vote against. So for instance, and I'm not saying this is the case, but Scientology could have a political action committee and send out mailers specifically against Mark. And by the end of the day, when they track where the money came from, the election's over. You know, that happened somewhat in your race, Aaron, where political action committees just dumped a ton of money in and tried to defeat you. And that, I believe, is what will happen, what will be tried to happen in Mark's race. So it's really key. You know, we don't have political action committees for Mark. So the money you give us is the money we spend on these direct mail pieces. And it's essential because of what we're up against. So when you look at a Tampa Bay Times article, for instance, and it says, well, Mark Bunker raised, you know, $30,000 and his next closest opponent raised $15,000, that's not necessarily the case because of these political action committees.
And let's be honest, the two people who are running against Mark Bunker both have deep ties to the political establishment in Tallahassee, who dump hundreds of thousands of dollars of PAC money into these local elections. So like Scott said, and this fundraising doesn't even show up on the campaign finance reports because the campaign isn't the one sending out the mailers, the PACs are.
Correct. That's exactly right. So it's hidden. Yeah. It's very much hidden money.
That's right. There ain't no PACs out there doing hidden ghost mailers for Mark Bunker. So that's why we need to raise as much money as possible. Let's give the people an idea of how expensive mailers are. So, and the mailers get smaller as you start out doing the biggest mailing, and then they get smaller as people send in their mail-in ballots and things like that. So the first mailer that Mark is going to send out, first of all, the mailers haven't started going out yet, even though we're only 6 weeks out. Help everyone understand how this works.
So mail-in ballots will be dropped the second week of February or so. I don't have the exact date. Second week of February, they'll be dropped. And at that point, that's when you'll see a lot of mailers in Clearwater coming out. That's when we'll drop our first. That first mailer is going to cost about $15,000 because it's going to go to likely voters who have voted in the past and who have requested a mail-in ballot. So we really want to get that out there. And then from there, we obviously add people who request a ballot, but we also take off people that have voted. So naturally, when somebody gets their ballot, you'll have a portion of those individuals that will send in their ballot. So we're not going to send them a mailer, but we will add the new people in, but it balances out. And like Aaron said, it does the amount does decrease that we send out, but I think what's key is the frequency. So we could send out 3 mailers, or we could send out 6 mailers, and that all comes down to what we can raise. If we have what we have right now, we could probably do 2 mailers, 3 mailers, maybe. Probably not much more than that. But what we're going to be up against is pretty large. I mean, I'm not trying to underestimate that, because we have a group of people, a lot of people that do not want to see Mark Bunker reelected, and it's essential he is reelected because, like Aaron talks about every day, it is the ground zero fight of Scientology, and he's right on that front line, and he has been since the early 2000s, if not before. I mean, you know better than I do.
Yeah. So we've raised about 40K so far. We want to raise another 20K in February. We want to raise another 10K in the first, the 2 weeks of March before the election. So we basically want to raise another 30K. And that's just, it's one of these things, like the more the better. The more postcards we can mail out, the better. And I don't mind saying that it just so happens that one of the most prestigious political consulting firms up in the Northeast is run by a gentleman who has family ties here in Clearwater, has a very thorough and long understanding of Scientology and what Scientology has done to Clearwater. And this is a cause that is near and dear to his heart. He's consulting the campaign for free. And that is to allow us to stretch all of the campaign donations as far as possible, put that money to the most effective use as possible, and not just going into the pocket of a consultant, but going towards direct mail. The donation limit, the individual donation limit to a campaign is $1,000. Also, any LLC or company can also donate $1,000. So if you've got a married couple and for whatever reason they have 2 LLCs, between the two of them, you could donate. Between the 2 individuals and the 2 LLCs, you could donate $4,000. Those are just the caps, right? Anyone anywhere in the country can donate to Mark's campaign, even though it's a Clearwater, Florida campaign. Any U.S. citizen who lives anywhere can donate. And that's also why the vast majority, 90 to 95% of Mark's donations have come from all over the country, because the truth is everyone in the world wants to see someone stand up to Scientology. And it is almost unheard of for someone in elected office to overtly stand up to Scientology. And on Clearwater, Florida City Council, Mark is the only one.
Ever.
And it is
well, I shouldn't say ever, but in a long
except
time.
For the old days.
Yeah.
Gabe Cesaris, the former mayor of Clearwater, was very strong against Scientology. There was another guy who was a commissioner. I'm going to totally forget.
I don't know
his name. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else? I'm just looking at some of the notes that I made. Any last comments you wanted to make about the campaign? Or
no,
anything?
I mean, just echo what you say. It's really every dollar we make, it's not going to consultants. It is going directly to these direct mail pieces that will hit to the likely voters in this race. And I can't stress enough how essential it is that Mark does get reelected, because if he doesn't, we've got a long haul, and it's scary, because there's not going to be anybody on city council that's going to ask the tough questions that's needed to be asked. Aside from Scientology, I mean, he's a good guy, and he deserves reelection. He's been there. He supported our police. They work very hard, our firefighters. That does not go unnoticed. I mean, 4 years ago, he did not have those endorsements. He was an unproven leader. And I think, fast forward 4 years to now, he is the guy. I mean, and that's resounding with the endorsements he received. So, it's important that we reelect him.
Yeah. And one thing that is really cool is Mark winning the election in 6 weeks does genuinely set him up for a campaign for mayor 4 years from now. Having a proven track record on the city council, an 8-year track record on the city council, showing that he can win despite being strongly opposed by everything Scientology can bring to bear, plus everything the political establishment can bring to bear. That sends a very, very strong message.
If Mark Bunker wins in 6 weeks, he's definitely a leading candidate in 4 years, should he choose to run. No
absolutely.
doubt.
Absolutely. And, so the way the Clearwater City Council rules work, you can serve 2 consecutive terms on the city council. We have a council manager form of government. So the mayor of Clearwater does not run the city. The council hires the city manager who runs the city. But you have 4 council members and you do have a mayor. So Mark will not be able to, if Mark wins in 6 weeks, he will not be able to run for city council again in 4 years, but he will be able to run for mayor. That's why we're mentioning the mayor position. All right, everyone. So thank you for hanging out with us this evening. If you're watching live on the replay, please visit the link down below, markbunker2024.com, and please make a donation to Mark Bunker's re-election campaign. Talk to you later, guys.
See ya.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.